Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today we're going to be talking about an element of Pathfinder 2e that seems to be a sticking point that many people have with 2e, and that is shields. See, in both Pathfinder 1e and D&D 5e, if you wear a shield, you get a static bonus to your armor class, no matter what you actually do with the shield. If you use a shield, your AC is better, period. You just have to give up a hand. Pathfinder 2e changes things by requiring you to actually spend an action on your turn to increase your AC by raising your shield to get any benefit at all from, holding a shield in one hand. Mechanically, this means that you spend an action to raise a shield, and then you get a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC until the start of your next turn, or a +1 if you're raising a buckler. This change is obviously going to have a bit of pushback to it because people don't like having to spend things to get bonuses, but I personally feel like it was the right call, and this video is going to be talking about why I think that. Let's just get into things. Okay, so before we get into the actual mechanical differences between shields and previous editions, and why that's a good thing, I need to talk about how different using a shield actually feels in 2e compared to previous editions. Since benefiting from a shield now requires actual active investment, it feels like using a shield is now a core part of your character's fighting style and identity, rather than just a sort of afterthought that you threw on there just to get the bonus to your AC. Essentially, whenever I played a 1e character from Pathfinder that used a shield, my mental image of that character didn't really care about the shield at all. Like, I just didn't imagine them fighting with a shield in combat, and some of that might have been just me, and some of that is probably just because I got a shield because I wanted a better AC, not because I really imagined the character with a shield. It's just a purely mechanical benefit. For 2e characters, though, if a character uses a shield, that is a core part of how I imagine that character. And this probably sounds a little bit whack to most people, but essentially shields in 2e don't allow themselves to be forgotten about and brushed over, and they really make themselves a center point of how you use them in combat, and that is good. I don't think that there should be any part of a character sheet that is just ignored and forgotten. Just, shields are active instead of passive, and I like that more. That's pretty much what the section comes down to. Okay, so now let's talk about the mechanics of shields and why they are actually very, very good. The core of my argument here is that someone using a shield is noticeably more defensive and more betterly defended than someone who isn't using a shield. And due to how the math works in 2e, that difference is actually really important more than it is in something like 1e Pathfinder or 5e D&D. In 1e Pathfinder, if someone is using a shield, yeah, their AC is going to be higher, but also just the way that AC versus attack rolls are calculated in 1e means that you're almost certainly going to get hit regardless of whether or not you're using a shield. In 2e, though, that difference is huge and is going to vastly reduce the amount of hits you get and vastly reduce the amount of critical hits. That difference is big, but there are, of course, a bunch of other mechanics that simply weren't very accessible in Pathfinder 1e, and I don't even know if they exist in 5e because I'm not very familiar with it. But the core of these is the shield block reaction. Shield block is a reaction that a few classes get access to for free, and everyone else can get through a general feat. But it allows you to reduce the damage that you take from below whenever you have your shield raised as a reaction. You reduce the damage by an amount equal to the hardness of your shield, and then both you and your shield take the remaining damage. So if you have a shield that has a hardness of 5 and you take 10 damage and you decide to shield block it, you reduce the damage by 5, and then both you and your shield take 5 damage. Essentially, not only do shields have the potential to reduce damage that you take by increasing your AC and making you actually get hit less, you can also reduce damage that you take directly by interposing the shield between you and whatever is hitting you. There are a bunch of cool feats that are related to shield block, and if you're interested in getting the most out of shields, I really do recommend either playing a fighter or a champion, as both of them have a lot of fun feats that interface with shields, and if you're looking for even more, then the Bastion and Viking archetypes have a ton of stuff for you to check out. They have a ton of super interesting options for shields in this edition, and I really encourage you to check them out because, honestly, a shield is now a center point for a character, and you can build an entire character around being defensive in this edition, and it is legitimately good. While I do love talking about shields, as you can clearly tell, I do have one particular problem with them, and that is that shield blocking gets to be a very, very bad idea very quickly unless you have particular shields after a couple of levels. As your shield takes the same amount of damage as you do whenever you shield block, you need a magical sturdy shield if you want your shield to actually survive a hit. And that's a little sad because it means you have to go out of your way to get a specific shield to be able to use the reaction. If this was a property of all magical shields, then I wouldn't have nearly as much of a problem with this. But as it is, if you get this sweet magical shield that has some really cool, interesting abilities, the instant that you shield block with it, it's going to shatter into a million pieces because it will probably only have like 30 hit points, and then you get hit for 50 damage. Like, that shield is going to get obliterated very quickly, so if you want to be shield blocking, you do really need a sturdy shield, which is just a bit lame. In a game that I would run, and this is I think the easiest fix for any homebrew games, I would just make the sturdy shield into a rune that you can apply to any shield. So the sturdy upgrade costs exactly the same, but it is now a rune that can be applied to any shield rather than a specific kind of shield. This means that you could use all the interesting shield options while also not sacrificing the ability to shield block with them. Sadly, rules as written though, if you want to use shield block, you have to buy sturdy shields, as otherwise your shields are going to splinter and break every single time you use the reaction, which is of course not ideal. The final bit that I want to talk about Pathfinder shields is, and this is honestly I think the best thing, the best change that was made to them, is that shields are no longer locked behind any particular class or proficiency, and that means that literally anybody can use them. Yeah, you have to take a general feat if you want to shield block, but a wizard at level 1 could be using a steel shield to increase their AC, which is so cool. You could also just see a rogue using a buckler, or a rogue using a shield, or just every single character has access to a shield. And as people who have watched this channel before probably know, I love literally any option that allows for more character concepts, because mixing and matching kind of archetypes and making an interesting character is the core of what makes 2e so good in my mind. Thanks for watching. This is a very short video. I know, but I don't really see a reason to try and bloat this one out to be a lot longer because, honestly, there's only so long that I can rant about shields. I'll probably make a video in the future covering all of the different magical shields in the game, but today is not that day. If you have any suggestions on things that I can do to make these videos better, I would be really happy to hear it, and I also want to hear your thoughts and opinions about shields. It took me a while, like half a year, to actually like how shields were implemented in 2e after I converted from Pathfinder 1e, and my thoughts are absolutely not an objectively correct take on shields, so I'd like to hear yours and how exactly I'm wrong. Anyways, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.